What's up, y'all? So today we're going to be talking about how to handle crested geckos. If you have one of these animals, you probably already know that they're a great species for handling, and I'm going to show you the right way to do so. So first things first, we have to get our crested gecko out of their enclosure. And the best way to do this is not to grab them from the top, as most people would be first to do, and is actually to grab them under their chin and present our hand as if it's a perch for them to grab onto. This will prevent them from feeling as if a predator is trying to get them, and more so feel like you're just another thing to climb onto, and they'll be a lot more comfortable with that. And this is what I mean. And do you see how easily this gecko just climbed onto my hand like that? That's what you want when you're getting your gecko out of the cage. You do not want to grab them from the top like I said, because it'll make them feel more like a predator is trying to get them. Alright, so now that we have our gecko out of the cage, we're going to talk about how to handle them to prevent them from being stressed out and keep their stress levels as low as possible when you have them out of the cage. Basically, we're going to do the same strategy that we did when we got them out of the cage, but we're just going to use our hands instead. So if you want your gecko to move from one hand to the other, you're just gonna present your hand as if it's a perch again under its chin, and it should calmly get used to that and then just climb onto your other hand, as you can see right there. And I will admit that this is already a very calm gecko, but with a little bit of work, if you have something like a hatchling or a gecko that just wasn't handled much before you got it, they should get used to this in a pretty short amount of time. You can see I'll just let it keep walking, and then as it goes off of my hand, I'll just keep doing that same thing, and then they're able to stay stress-free and walk around. So I've gotten out my gargoyle gecko, as this next part is going to be how to get your gecko to jump where you want it, or just kind of anticipate where it's going to move. That way you don't let it get injured jumping onto the floor from a high elevation or something like that. And the care for the handling part and everything is going to be pretty much the same for Saracenorum geckos, crested geckos, and basically any kind of climbing gecko. So what we're going to do is let this gecko climb onto my hand and give it a good opportunity to jump. And I'll show y'all how you can really just anticipate where it's going to jump to by the way that it behaves. So I'm going to do the same thing here, let it perch on my hand, nice and calm. And you can see this one isn't very interested in jumping right now. And a way that you can actually get them to jump if you want them to, maybe from one hand to another or onto a close object nearby, is to kind of give them a little nudge right behind their thigh in the back there. So we'll see if this gecko will do it. Sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. It just depends on how they're feeling. So I'm gonna see if I can get this gecko, since it's looking towards my other hand, to jump onto it. So I'm gonna give it a little nudge on the back. Right now it doesn't. There we go. So sometimes it takes them a minute and then they are ready to jump. And you don't want to do that all the time, but if you are in an awkward position with them and you just need them to jump on your other hand real quick, that's the best way. Now, the anticipating the movement part kind of happens where you see them if they lock onto a certain object or something nearby with their eyes. So this one isn't really interested in jumping right now because it's just sitting low on my hand. I'm going to move it to this hand real quick. But you can see it's looking towards me now. and it's kind of locking its eyes. So we'll see if it wants to make a jump. There we go. And they don't jump very far or anything like that, but they are arboreal, meaning they like to climb, so they do have the ability to jump quite far. And it's just something that you might want to let them do when you have them out of their cage. Something like a leopard gecko that's more terrestrial or restricted to the ground isn't really going to want to jump. But these geckos are actually built for it, so they have the ability to. Now, one last thing to note about these geckos that I find really cool is that they have a prehensile tail, meaning they can actually use it to help them climb. So you don't really want to ever tug on a gecko's tail or anything like that, pinching it with your fingers, and you definitely don't want to pick them up by the tail. But you can kind of observe this type of behavior if you just really quick lift up on the end of their tail. Sometimes they'll grab onto your finger with it. So I'll show you that right now. See how it's kind of curling its finger around my hand? Wasn't the best example of it, but there you go. So you can see it kind of grabs on. And these geckos have a material that allows them to climb on the pads of their feet and actually a little bit on the tip of their tail. And they're called lamellae, which are basically just billions and billions of tiny little hairs that actually make a chemical reaction called a van der Waals reaction with the surface that they're climbing on. And that allows them to stick onto the glass and the different objects that they like to climb. Basically just gives them a better grip. And things like a leopard gecko, again, something that is more terrestrial and doesn't climb that much, isn't gonna have this. So I hope you all enjoyed this short video. I just wanted to give some tips on how to better handle your gecko to make sure that you're keeping them as stress-free as possible. Now, I'd really appreciate it if you like down below and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this. Please have a great day. Thank you.